Louise Borglit. Louise Borglit was a 32-year-old woman who lived with her sister and brother-in-law in their apartment in Herlev, Denmark. She worked as a beauty advisor at a luxury department store chain and was 7 months pregnant at the time. The baby's father and Louise were not in a relationship, and she had recently moved from Copenhagen to her sister's apartment after finding about her pregnancy. On November 4th, 2016, it was a cold, rainy day, and Louise decided to walk her sister's dog, a golden retriever named Maggie, to the nearby Elver Park. She borrowed her brother-in-law's green raincoat, pants and boots and left the apartment at 6:30 p.m. At around 7:30 p.m., Louise's sister, Suzanne, received a phone call from the police telling her to come to the Elver Park as something horrible had happened to her sister. When Suzanne arrived at the park, she saw her sister on the ground in a pool of blood. Police said that around 7:10 p.m., while walking their dog, a couple saw Maggie running towards them with her leash dragging behind. The couple sensed that Maggie wanted to lead them to something. They followed Maggie and found Louise lying on the ground in the grass next to the park trail. Maggie stayed by Louise's side while paramedics arrived. Neither Louise nor her unborn child could be saved. An autopsy revealed that Louise had been stabbed to death with a large knife. The dog was completely unharmed and her fur was tested for evidence. Police questioned around to see if anyone had noticed anything or anyone at the time of the murder. Soon, a witness came forward. She said that on that day, she heard 2 screams from Elver Park. The second scream was long and heartbreaking panic scream. Shortly after those screams, a man came running out of Elver Park. The witness was standing on the other side of the road when the man emerged from the park. After seeing the witness, the man put his hands up in the air before turning around and running back into the park. The witness described the man as being between the ages of 28 and 30. He was around 180 centimeters tall with a slim build and a small face. He was wearing all black clothing with a black hood over a black hat. The man is considered to be a suspect in the case but has yet to be identified. The murder weapon has also not been found yet. Police have questioned more than 700 people and more than 40 knives have been investigated, but so far no luck. A CCTV footage of the killer has been released by the police, but the video was taken from afar and the man is hardly visible. The case remains unsolved. Emilie Meng. On 9 July 2016, Emilie Meng and 2 of her friends went on a city trip to a nearby town of Sluis. After the trip, Emilie and her friends arrived at the Korsør train station to return home at around 2 a.m. of 10th of July. Her friends decided to take a taxi home while Emilie wanted to walk home. She told her friends that she needed some fresh air and left on foot to walk the 2-kilometer path home. This would be the last time her friends would see her alive. At around 4 a.m., one of her friends received a Facebook message from Emilie. The contents of the message have not been released by the police. The friend replied back to the message and Emilie saw the message, but didn't reply back. This would be the last time anyone heard from her. That morning, she was expected to sing at a local church at 9:30 a.m., but she never showed up. When her friends and family didn't hear from her, she was reported missing. Initially, the police treated it as a runaway case. At first, there were rumors that she had love problems and had run away before, but this was found to be not true. It was only after 3 days that police took the case seriously and considered the possibility that Emilie may have met with foul play. An extensive search was carried out and hundreds of volunteers searched in and around the city, forests, lakes and the seas, but to no avail. There were several sightings in and around the city and even in Germany, but none were ever confirmed. Police soon started to receive tips from all over the country leading to 3 suspects, including a 33-year-old truck driver and 67-year-old man who had his house searched 5 times, but all of them were later eliminated as suspects. A few items would also be found, including a bag and a torn shirt that looked like the one Emilie was wearing when she went missing. However, it would later be ruled out. Her posters were put up around the country, but nothing came out of it. Days turned to weeks and weeks turned to months, but she would not be found. Then, 6 months later, on 24th December, Emilie's body was found by a dog walker in a waterhole near a city called Borup, more than 60 kilometers from where she was last seen. The place where she was found was very deserted, and only the people who know the place ever use it for dog walking. Police have not revealed much information about the cause of her death, only that she was a victim of a violent crime and that she died on the day she went missing or shortly after that. In 2017, police would release a CCTV footage from the train station. They are now looking for a white car, likely a Hyundai i30, which can be seen in the background at the parking lot just after her disappearance. However, the quality of the video is pretty bad. The person driving the car have not come forward. There have been no new leads in the case since then, and the case still remains unsolved. Connie Svendsen. Connie Birgit Svendsen lived at Snellmark in Ron on Bornholm. She was well known on the island and had a large number of friends. She was 51 years old, divorced, and worked as a waitress at a local hotel. On 1st of September 1997, Connie had work in the morning, but she never showed up for her shift. Connie was known to be conscientious and would always let her boss know if she was running late or if she wasn't coming for her shift. When she did not arrive for work, her boss decided to check up on her. She visited her apartment and found the front door unlocked. As she entered her bedroom, she found Connie's body beaten and strangled to death. She immediately notified the police. Connie was last seen alive on the evening of August 31st, 1997 at 11 p.m. leaving for home after a night out with friends. During the investigation, police found no sign of forced entry in her apartment. In fact, Connie and her killer also seemed to be drinking wine and smoking cigarettes together before she was killed. According to the police, the killer was likely someone that Connie knew. Police found Connie's DNA on few of the cigarettes, while 6 cigarettes were found with the killer's DNA on it. The peculiar thing about these 6 cigarettes was that the filters were chewed on. Investigators believe that it was likely a person who worked outdoors or someone who worked with 2 hands like fishermen, farmers, seamen, etc. that chewed the cigarette butts. Investigators were able to create a DNA profile of the killer from the cigarette butts. However, despite interviewing 2,000 people and taking 600 blood samples, police have not been able to match anyone to the killer's DNA. It was only recently that the case was brought before the public eye after it was featured on a local TV show after 15 years. When Connie was killed, the case did not receive much media attention. The feature produced some tips from the public, but so far the case remains unsolved. Stine Geisler. On the night of 4th June 1990, 18-year-old Stine Geisler went to a Pentecostal carnival in Copenhagen with some friends. After midnight, Anne wanted to go home as it had started to rain. So she said goodbye to her friends before cycling home along the canal at Camel Strand. After arriving at her house in Tygard Street, she put her bike in the backyard. At the backyard, she was assaulted by an unknown man, who then dragged her into a basement room of a neighboring Tech Crayon restaurant. The next day, a chef had to pick up something in the basement but had difficulty getting in because a black cord had been wrapped around the handle so the door couldn't be opened. When the chef finally opened the door and turned on the light, she found the body of Anne lying on her stomach. Her hands had been tied behind her back with the same cord wrapped around the door handle and then brought up around her neck in a way so it would tighten around her neck if she moved her arms. Police also found that 2 pieces of dish clothes had been forced down her throat. She had died of suffocation. The killer had even made several cuts with a shard of glass or a knife on her face and neck. On her right arm, the killer had carved a mysterious symbol. The killer had also poured floor polish on her body. There was no evidence to suggest that she had been sexually assaulted. Over the next 3 years, police questioned more than 3,800 people, but to no avail. During the investigation, police suspected several people in connection with the case, one of which was a man named Peter Kronholm, who lived in an apartment near the Tech Kron restaurant. He came under suspicion after he killed his girlfriend and hid her body in his wardrobe. The man had lived near Ann's residence the night she had been killed, but had moved immediately after the murder. He had an alibi from 6 p.m. to 1 a.m. the night Ann was murdered, but he did not have any alibi after 1 a.m. and he could not explain what he was doing at the time Ann was supposedly murdered, which was around 3 a.m. However, police did not have enough evidence to link him to her murder, and he escaped without any charges. Her case remains unsolved for 29 years. Marie Lock-Hansen. Marie was born on June 13, 1924 in Lisbjerg near Aarhus. In early 1940s, Marie met painter Leif Jorgensen and both got married in April 1946. However, the marriage didn't last and the two got divorced in 1952. Around this time, she was working as a secretary for a civil engineer, Oscar Lock-Hansen. Both fell in love with each other and soon married in 1953. Together, Marie, Oscar, and Oscar's daughter from previous marriage moved to a villa in Horchberg. In 1965, Oscar sold his share of the engineering company and took up a teaching job at the University of Aarhus. Meanwhile, Marie opened up a photocopying shop in the basement of their house, where she used to print materials for Oscar's teaching job and various materials for the local associations. On November 10, 1967, Oscar left for work around 9 a.m. Due to a busy day at the photocopying shop, Marie had hired one of her neighbors, Lizzie Christensen. Marie and her housemaid, Irma Rasmussen, did some housework while Lizzie worked at the photocopying in the basement. At around 10:50 a.m., both Marie and Irma took a coffee break. While they were enjoying their coffee, they were interrupted by a doorbell. Marie opened the door and Irma heard her speak briefly. Irma overheard Marie telling the man at the door, "We are busy today, but if you could make it quick, come inside." The man followed Marie as she walked across the hall to her office in the house. Just seconds after Marie had closed the door to the office, Irma heard Marie screaming, after which 3 shots were fired. Hearing the shots, Irma ran towards the office to aid Marie. The door of the office opened and Irma found herself face to face with the man. He aimed his Walter P38 directly at her and shot her in the lower abdomen. The man then left the house quickly, but before leaving he quietly told Irma, "Now you just stay there and stay calm." Lizzie, who was working in the basement, heard the shots and immediately ran outside to find help. On her way to the neighbor's house, she saw a man walking calmly on the sidewalk, who is now believed to be the killer. However, he disappeared shortly after. She found a neighbor and called the police and ambulance. Meanwhile, severely wounded Irma dragged herself through the living room and onto the patio, where she cried out for help. A gardener working nearby rushed to help her. He entered the house and found Marie lying in a pool of blood in the office. He immediately ran back to the neighbor's house and called the police. Police and ambulance arrived shortly after. Marie was pronounced dead at the scene, while Irma survived. Irma was able to provide a description of the killer. She told the police that the killer was around 35 to 40 years of age, 175 to 185 centimeters tall, slim and dark-haired. He was wearing a black or a dark blue coat, a hat, glasses, and was carrying a dark-colored briefcase. The Danish police questioned more than 20,000 people and spent around 100,000 hours in the investigation, but the killer was never caught. Over the years, there have been several theories regarding her murder. Some believed that Marie, on her many walks with the dog, had seen something she shouldn't have at the Naval Operative Command, which had a base nearby, and was killed to keep her quiet. Others believed that she was mistaken for Grethe Bartram, who during the war became known abroad for stabbing a large number of Danish resistance people. While the third theory that was put forward was that Marie had a secret lover, but police found no evidence to believe that she was involved with any other person. 2 months after the murder, police drew a sketch of the killer based on Irma's description. However, Irma was never satisfied with the sketch, which is why police never published it. Instead, they made hundreds of copies and distributed to police stations throughout the country. But there have been no suspects or any arrest in the case, and the murder of Marie has never been solved.